And what I want to do is share with you guys a couple of images to help give a little bit of an understanding of what we're talking about when we're really referring to DNA. And this is, again, kind of understanding that our DNA is like, I keep wanting to say coaxial cables. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I'm probably making up a word. Cables. And you know how like there's you could, back in the day when we had like the full-on cable lines or the phone lines that came into the house, and as they fortified them, they would fortify them with maybe more heavy-duty types of metals or more intertwining bands within the coax or the cable lines. So within this, we want to kind of understand that we're kind of like this. And as we've been working through our ascension timeline, that through the distortion of many of the genetic lines, if we just first weave it all the way back to the origin point of where the signal is coming from, this is really going to be coming from the Emerald Order Elohai. This is coming from the Anuhazi races. This is stepping down from the fifth harmonic universe in the Rishi level down into the fourth harmonic universe within the Christ Avatar God system. I don't know if I have an image here for you. Let me try this one. And as we step it down from this level of the avatar, we're then getting into the monadic level. This is the oversoul level, which is going to be in the third harmonic universe within there. And then as we step it down into the soul level, this is the Pleiadian timelines, the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional levels. Each of these are our tree of lives that we're wanting to work with. This is an image from Energetic Synthesis, the website, just depicting how the tree of life replicates itself as a pattern again, over and over and over again in each harmonic universe. And then we come all the way down here within what we call the incarnate level of our experience. This is where we have our egoic identity within this reality. And as we imagine this egoic identity, we want to step into starting to let our higher self, our higher mind communicate with us in the soul level. And as we're working with this, we're then trying to get into our oversoul level. But we know that all of these templates actually have distortions in them until we get all the way up into our avatar level at the 12th sphere, which is actually going to be way up here with these triads that are going to connect then to the Rishik Tri-Founder Flame, or the spherical ascended master realm. So we'll just kind of play with that for a minute as I continue with this idea. Now, within this, we're going to now reverse it back down the other way. And as these origin points are making their way into creation, basically these seed and ancient stellar races basically started to begin to create a human form. This is actually all coming from the Melchizedek ultra-terrestrial family line. So this image right here is actually coming from a book called The Secret of the Indigos from Ashiana Dean. And this book right in here, she has a couple graphs in here that actually show that from these Rishik lines, in the Rishik lines, the Elohai lines were created and the Seraphi lines were created. At the level of which we would think of the rishis. And as the rishis began to bring this energy down into the fourth harmonic universe, this is going to be the level of where we think of as our Buddhic and our Christ consciousness. Okay? And the Buddhic and Christ consciousness is held within what we many times refer to as the emerald diamond sun, and then we have the golden sun. And within each of these, there's a distorted lineage that started to get created starting in the third harmonic universe. It actually started in the fourth harmonic universe at about the 10th sphere, and then infiltrated all the way up into the 11th sphere in Avion. And when this, and I'll actually just kind of highlight this here. So as you can see, the Ruby, Templar, Belial, Sun, DNA digressive started within this fourth harmonic universe here and are referred to as the fallen Elohim. Now, the fallen Elohim are basically these angelic race lines who started to actually cut themselves off from the 12th sphere in order to become their own masters of the 11th dimensions down. And so they are beings that hold 11 strands of DNA within here, and they're very much connected to the Lyra Vega wars and the planetary system of Avion within the Lyra system. So this is going to be the 10th, 11th Stargate. So Avion is actually the 11th Stargate connected to the 11th strand. And so we can see the distortions start all the way up there. And we've talked about that. But now I want to kind of show how this kind of progresses down. Now, the Elohai lines are going to be the ones that are much more connected to energies that we would think of the Anuhazi. These are like the blue, white, Syrian type looking beings. These are the Lyran Syrians. These are going to be connected to Arcturians, Leonines, Cetaceans, Aqua hominids, etheric avian hominids, and the light archangels. So she's referring to that as the beings that maintained their connection to the Christ consciousness codes. But as we get to see the fallen Elohim, they actually began to start to create the Anu lineage lines. And this is, again, look how high up the Anunnaki energy actually comes from. So these Anu lineage lines comes from the 11th strand, and they are connected to the Hyperboreans, the Andromes, and the Pleiadian etheric H. So this is also going to be connected to a lot of the Pleiadian Anu or the Anunnaki Pleiadian lineage lines. As they actually start to present themselves, they're very high dimensional beings, and many times they look very blonde, very beautiful, very blue-eyed, very etheric, very angelic in form. So what I really want to kind of bring forward a little bit is just kind of an understanding that at this level, many of these beings, even though they're holding digressive or regressed codes within them, or just not complete sequences, that they are actually still at a very high level. Now, within this Rishik level, there's also a Seraphi line that came through. This is going to be the Gold Ray lineage. This is going to be more the winged order. The Elohai is like the power source at this etheric level, at this plasma level, whereas the Seraphi creates the flame or the movement. So they're referred to more as the winged beings. Now, on the benevolent side, we're going to see the Gold Sun lineage actually is connected to the Ceres lineage line. So these are the avians that actually gave of the feather. We've talked about that with our avian talks. They gave of the feather to kind of help us restore our codes. They're connected to the Athean or the Mantis lines. I know you hear me talk about them a lot. I have such a love and affinity to them. And many of the benign, the benevolent, like the insectoid, the bee races, many of the reptilian race lines, the benevolent reptilian race lines, the serpentine, the sacred serpent lineage lines. Remember the divine goddess taking on the serpent and the dragon. This is really connected to the Seraphi lines, also the avians and the dinos. So these are the genetics that was most heavily taken and used to hybridize into creating fallen race lines that are actually quite regressive on the dark side. And so we're going to see the fallen energy of the Seraphim line is called the Black Sun. And I want to really refer to this because the Black Sun plays a huge role in what we're dealing with in our time template, because it's really the energy that holds the Weezadak system energy. So this is a regressive or a fallen system. When the universe kind of had a split in it, there's a whole aspect of our universe that kind of fell into a reversal system, and this is the Black Sun. And this regressive DNA pulled a lot of the archangel energy into it. So when we talk about the Archangel Michael family line, the consciousness of Michael family and the consciousness of the seraphim and the consciousness of the gold ray that fell in and got sucked into these cube systems. This is what we're referring to, is this race line that got sucked into these fallen systems in the black sun energy that is still connected to the Lyra Vega, Orion, and eventually they became the reptilian Anunnaki lineage lines. And a lot of the really malevolent or regressive their codes are only reaching 10 strands of DNA. And what this means for them is they're very animalistic and kind of predatory in many times the way they think. They don't have empathy. So when you kind of connect to somebody that holds this and you're sitting there going like, how could you do this? How could you treat someone like this? A lot of times it's because they're actually holding this coding within them. And here's how the difference works, because a lot of you might be going like, well, what is the difference holding 12 strands versus 10 strands? What is the difference between the 12 tree grid tree of life and the Kabbalah 10 sphere tree of life? What is the difference? The difference is that those that hold the 10 or even the 11, not so much. The 11 can have a little bit more empathy and compassion to them, but the 10 strand very much operates almost from a lack of emotion around certain things. It's like they can hurt someone, they can do something and it doesn't faze them, it doesn't bother them because they don't have that strand activated within themselves, so they don't actually have an issue with it. Whereas someone holding 11, but primarily the potential for 12 strand within, so the Orifem descendants down through the Terranusium lineage lines, this is what I'm referring to, I'm just giving you fancy words to say you do have that coding within you that has that empathy towards, you can't just hurt an animal, you can't just kick something and not think of anything of it, you can't go just do a merger in a business and not care about that it's going to ruin lives for other people and so on and so forth. So that's how we start to understand, how are there certain people running around the planet doing certain things that they're doing and we don't understand. Well, how could they do that? How could they operate like that? How could they not have the compassion for that? Is because they literally don't have that DNA activated within themselves. So I'm going to just kind of slide down on here, and I'm mainly going to focus on this energy over here to show our lineage line through here, because this is going to be the Melchizedek lineage line. As it steps down into the second harmonic universe, this is where we get a lot of the guides and the guardians that we work with. This is going to be, again, the Syrian Pleiadian Azurites. These are blue hominid beings. These are going to be descendants of even the Aquiferian races. The Pleiadian Nordic Blondes, we got the Bigfoot lineage line comes through here. The Emerald Order moving down through here. And I want to just kind of tie into, you can see that it says within here, the Azurites are holding 12 to 24 strand double diamond DNA. The Emerald Order are holding 30 to 48 within here. And the Orifem can hold 24 to 30. Just a reminder, when you look at the astrological wheel, again, we were showing the 360 degrees. That's what these are referring to on there. If we were a whole being, we would actually hold 180 of the strands of the DNA, so half of the sphere, and then our antimatter aspect would actually hold the other half, and we would become the whole of 360 degrees. It's kind of complex. I'll touch on that in another place, but it's in essence, then we become whole. When our matter antimatter aspects become one again, we literally, that is how we step back into the Rishik sphere of consciousness, 360 degrees of consciousness. So now as we get to see this, the Terranusium human races, these forms that were originally created in the Pleiades, these are where a lot of the indigenous tribes were originally seeded and created before they were brought to the earth. Okay, So that is why they acknowledge the Pleiades and many other star systems at their home, and not the Earth as their original home, but that they acknowledge themselves as the caretakers and the guardians of the Earth, because that was what they were created and appointed for. And so the Terranusium race lines are the original Adami Kudman bodies that were these massive beings of consciousness that actually had all 12 frequencies of consciousness. What 12 frequencies of consciousness means is that, oops, wrong one, is that your consciousness actually moves through all 12 spheres on here. I'll pull up this one just for this level. So it means that your consciousness actually not only, kind of more the one on the universal side, it actually has the ability to connect through levels of telepathy and consciousness projection to connect with all 11 other aspects within these spheres of consciousness. There's an ability to connect through all of these orbs and spheres, or what are called signets, that you hold as a template within your body. Now, these signets are actually held within your physical form through certain energy systems within your body. So the universal 12 tree grid of life actually overlays over your body. And for a way of actually starting to have a perception of that, let me see if I can find an image for you to see this within there. This one will work. And oh, what did I touch? I don't want that. These are each of these chakra centers within the body, and then the MC. So the C 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are the main chakras we're aware of in these colors. This is another image from one of Ashiana Dean's resources. And as you see this, there's also these other ones called MC. These are morphogenetic chakras. And as you look at the MCs, they're actually connected to stargates that are starting to move through higher morphogenetic fields, that beyond the 8th stargate, we are actually now starting to work with our antimatter particle aspects of self. And it's really complicated. So we'll keep little by little adding on to this. That as we start to realize we're in this carbon-based form, as we're working into silica-based consciousness, and then eventually into crystalline and plasma-based radiances of consciousness, we're kind of bringing the matter antimatter together as one in order to create an entire sphere of consciousness within here. But the 12 tree grid of life actually connects to very specific points in your body. So if you learn to start differentiating these energy systems within your body, you can actually begin to connect to that energy center, that chakra point, or that stargate in your body, because that's what they are. And then you can move your consciousness into it to connect through it to that timeline of your consciousness on that timeline within the dimensional field. So say you connect to the chakra 7 at the crown of your head, you have the ability to actually begin to connect to, I believe, the Arcturian timeline. And let me see if I can come back here to one of these images. Yes, Arcturus right here, Arcturus timeline and dimensional spectrum. So you would be able to actually connect to that energetic sphere that is holding or is being held by guardianship of that genetic race line of beings. So say you connect to the 8th stargate, again, that's the thymus, the higher heart. And we talk about that quite a bit when we're talking about healing a lot of the Orion timelines within there. And you can see the 8th stargate is going to be connected to Orion, Alnitak, and Mintaka. So as you connect to different morphogenetic chakras and chakra points within your body, you are literally able to tap into those very dimensional planes like a Stargate into these other timelines. But the only way that you can do that is if your genetics has the capacity of those activated Stargates or DNA strands within you, or if you have actually awakened that genome within you. Now, as we kind of just complete this, I want to just show, if we were to look at the 11-strand reverse DNA matrix, you can see that this is what their scalar wave template looks like. She created these as kind of just a description for you to see it. And what it is they have the 11th dimensional strand in there, but they're missing an entire line sequence within their DNA in here. Not only that, when you have black sun DNA, you end up with these cubes, or, they're representative of these cubes, but it is actually literally a cube technology, or like a boxed in geometry. It's something that's finite. So it keeps you looped into that sequence so it doesn't flow organically all the way through. And so what it is that we end up with these seals or implants upon our strands of our sequences of our DNA if we're holding some of these reversal codes. And so the work that we're generally doing is to come in here and actually get these removed off of our sequence, off of our way it moves. Now, if we look at this is a 9-strand reversed DNA matrix. This is the Nibiruan, Pleiadian, the Nephilim, the Draconian, and the Anunnaki. You can see that they're missing a lot of their sequences within there, and they have a step down within there, but again, they're only really able to operate between the 2 to 10 strand, and as they are doing this, again, they have all of these seals or these cubes upon their system. Black cube, there's red cube, black cube, but these cube systems basically become finite. They trap part of the light particles within there so that they don't escape out of there, and so they basically remain trapped in order for keeping that system organically flowing, not organically, but parasitically living off of that energy. Now, as we look at the Belial suns, we're going to actually get to see this again as 10-strand, but again, missing major sequences within there. And this is going to be, again, the hybridization. This is going to be a lot of the human cloister hybrid races. There's a lot of humans on Earth that are holding this Belial sun template within there. It's a reverse DNA matrix because this is going to be, again, a lot of the forced hybridized genetics upon the planet. And they're holding, again, whether it's seals, you can see there's such things as Pleiadian seals, black cube systems on there. And each of these, again, is restricting the way the light stream flows in order to allow that energy to move. So very quickly, just kind of moving through here, again, you can see black sun, but now we're really looking at this as a reversal system. Because not only are they not, you can see some of these are black, some of these are white, but these are all black. So they're basically operating, but they're operating completely from the reversal system. This is to understand that when you're dealing with people that are holding these kind of imprints with how their genome is moving through their DNA, you're not going to be able to relate to them. You're not going to be able to understand the way they think. You're not going to be able to understand their meanness or their pettiness or the way they can backstab each other or do things that seem completely filled with lack of empathy, or how they are so self-serving in certain ways. And also to realize, if any of us have had Indigo type 3 contracts, we've had one of these beings attached to us as a surrogate that we've been assisting to learn morals and ethics within this lifetime. Now, as we start to learn to what we're here to work with, we start to look at these Orifim race lines that were created. So now we're getting to our heritage of why were we created. The reason why we were created is in order to begin to hold the entire stranded DNA matrix within us. But generally, it's not all online. Many times this level of sequence has the ability to be turned on, but many of it is usually dormant until we come into this life and start to do the work in order to awaken that genetic sequence within ourselves so that it can activate and come back online again. So now just to get to see the 24 strand DNA matrix of the double diamond sun, this is something that there are individuals, this is going to be a lot of the lineage line that is going to be holding the Terranusium, Admon, Kudmon, Cloister energy within them. And as they get to hold this energy, this is going to be assisting the diamond sun, the gold sun, and a rehabilitation to assist the ruby sun and the black sun beings. Now, as we look at the Emerald Sun 48 strand DNA, this is actually very, very unique. The only beings that could come in holding this genetic sequence would be an indigo star being. Now, we do have our children coming in that are actually starting to bring in higher codes now, but we're kind of communicating for some of the energy that we've been holding. Now, this allows up to 48 dimensions of consciousness to be accessible through the humanoid form, but it doesn't mean that it's automatically active. It means that these beings would have entered into incarnation into a planetary system where our genetics wouldn't have been completely online. They would have been within us, but kind of switched off. A lot of them switched off. And within that, our vibration and frequency would have felt completely different than most of the other humans that we were hanging out with, because most other humans were only coming in with 3, 4, and some maybe coming in with 5, but really 3 and 4. And then the indigos started to incarnate in at the 6th strand of DNA. Now, at the 6th strand of DNA, it takes a higher frequency within the body to be able to house this energy. And what it is it's about coming in to be able to allow oneself to be around others in order to, again, when we talk about that, many times all you need to do is just shine your light. Just shine your light and let yourself radiate your energy in the environment around you. Be the radiance that you came here to be so that you can create the gravitational field that again starts to attune to others, that gets them interested in your energy through your smile, through the conversation that you have, through the energy that you share. And what it does is it transfers that energy over as a potential into their DNA sequence, so that you're kind of giving them the missing codes that they might be missing in this incarnation. Now, indigos, as we just keep touching into this, are going to be beings that will have felt as though they didn't fit in. Your body would have felt more sensitive to the environment around you. You would have been more sensitive to electricity, electrical currents, or the way things function on this planet. You would not have felt as much as drawn to a lot of the same things that other humans on Earth might have been drawn to, such as being competitive, really challenging yourself to get certain titles or labels or certain things like this. You know, especially as a child, many children wouldn't have been even that interested in sports or any competitive things like that, because they just would have been like, oh, you know, it just wouldn't have been as the draw, the passion. You know, you're probably not gonna be the fan that's all painted up in the sports arena cheering for everybody, because it's just kind of like, oh, that's kind of barbaric and archaic what they're doing. You know, it's like, do they even realize what they're feeding in this coliseum right now? And so there's a kind of an understanding that coming in with active but maybe not turned on genetics within you isn't just some thing we think about within ourselves. It physically plays out in the body, as the body not even being able to actually know what to do with the energy in it. So sometimes there's massive allergies as a child. Your body doesn't know how to handle a lot of the other things, maybe allergies to different things, sensitivities to things, heightened abilities and heightened sensory perception to things that you would have had to learn to shut down just to even survive within this reality. And many, many, many indigos be it 1, 2, or 3 type, would have had so many unique experiences and unique kind of oversensitivities to things that many times it creates massive levels of depression by preteen ages, even as far as suicidal thoughts or feelings of wanting to check out of this reality, because there's just a sense of not knowing how to figure out or handle this world. And so within this, there's a lot of even draw at a younger age for many, not all, but for many, to dive into alcohol or drugs or to do things to try to check out from this reality and numb this reality so that it isn't so overwhelming to deal with. And unfortunately, it took a lot of waves of indigos to actually get seated on the earth enough to where, now we're the old people on the planet. Now we're the grown-ups. And as we get to be this, it took a lot of waves, and not all of the indigos succeeded in awakening. Not all of the indigos succeeded in surviving or actually realizing who they even were. Many expired on the planet or are still remaining asleep upon the planet because they became too inundated by the shadow that they were carrying. And kind of it's easy to even just want to check out again or give up. So for many that did keep following that little nudge in the heart, kept trudging through all of the things that felt very confusing or felt as though it was almost hopeless or where am I going? But there's always that little hope or that little feeling or that little spark inside that kept you going to do good. And this is specifically for the indigo type 3, because again, indigo types 3s would have dealt with almost kind of having to feel as though you would have done things in this life where later you were like, I don't even know why I did that. I don't do those things. I don't believe in those things. And really what it was is that you again are a kind of a nanny for the Nephilim. So there's probably instances where maybe as a kid you stole something, or maybe as a kid you lit a fire to something and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? I don't, it's like, I actually want to be good and I want to do good things on the planet. Well, it's because there's just that Nephilim acts up at different times through the timeline. And then each time it's like your higher self, your Orifim self kind of comes in and says, now, what did you learn from doing that? Did that make you feel good, or did it make you not feel good? Well, we don't like doing that, do we? We want to actually do good. And it's literally almost kind of like you can look at your life and see little things that you've done where maybe you actually said something really mean to somebody. And then afterwards you're like, oh my gosh, that's like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? And you find yourself then actually kind of coaching that aspect of the self. And it's really confusing for a lot of the life, because there's almost a sense of going like, well, am I a bad person? Well, have I done bad things? Am I really that person? And there's always a sense inside where it's kind of like, well, no, that's not who I am. That's not what I am. But many people don't get to that place of understanding what this energy is. So it's kind of like two parts dueling inside of each other. And those two parts that duel, eventually, as the person gets older, that level of maturity starts to override all of that indigo 3 contract. And many times at a particular age, that contract will actually end and you won't do that anymore. But there are many individuals that will still actually continue it, but at a higher level, because the Nephilim won't have any ability to actually throw off the plan, and it's just kind of almost done on a lateral side energy. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's kind of like done in the peripheral as your higher self really takes seat into your life. But there's still kind of a coaching business that's going on the periphery of your spiritual aura, assisting a lot of souls, energies, and entities to begin to still translate and move off of the planet. And as that happens, we get to now realize that there's a way to support many of these beings, because many of the beings that came in with these higher codes, one of the things that has been referred to is, that Ashiana Dean brought up through sharing about the indigos. And I will say there's quite a few resources I could tell you guys about the indigos. I know Lisa Renee talks a bit about the indigos. Ashiana Dean talks about it through there. There's another being, and he calls himself Mission Guide. I'm actually not sure what's happened to him. I haven't been able to connect to him for a really long time. So he's either gone completely off the grid, but he also did a lot of communication and writing about what it was and how difficult it was for him to be a type 3 indigo. But when certain aspects of the indigo start to get overridden by the Nephilim that they're babysitting, she mentioned that many of them actually then ended up with different types of spectrum conditions within this lifetime as a way to shut down that Nephilim aspect within them, so that aspect would be more subdued, and then that soul could still be coached in this lifetime to still learn how to live with morals and to start to correct their codes. It was really just a chance for them to take on an angelic body, so that their next incarnational cycle they can actually begin to integrate at a higher level. So, thanks, Ray. So with that, as we get to move that energy through within this, we get to now just kind of realize we're all playing different roles, whether it's 10 strand, 11 strand, 12 strand, and the activation through the sequences, it doesn't matter. We're all playing different roles. And so as we acknowledge that with humanity around, that everybody on the planet has the potential. Every single being in a human body actually has the potential. And our job is to just be within a state of love that doesn't judge one way or another, but our job is just to be ourself in our energy, but also recognize everybody else mirrored around us and just say, I know who I am on my path. And I don't care if your label in this lifetime is my mother, my father, my sister, my grandmother, my child. I don't care what your title is in this lifetime. I will not consent to the paradigm of these titles as a way to distort my field. I recognize you as an eternal soul. So challenging. I recognize you as an eternal soul, that you too are on this very same journey. Therefore, it is your responsibility to be your higher self. And that you're solidifying yourself within that energy now becomes the anchor point for that as a mirror. Be the stronger mirror for others. And when you be that, you also realize that part of being a mirror and mirroring the Christ consciousness path means that sometimes your mirror needs to reflect not giving permission for certain people to treat you in certain ways. And then you get to just fully and completely feel yourself, allowing your energy to, you'll feel it. Your energy will replenish and balance faster and faster and faster as you do this. So when you get hit by something, sure, we're going to get tired sometimes when the Schumann resonance goes a bit wonky, when the aurora borealis is going off, we can pretty much be certain we're going to be drained. It's going to be like, I don't know what hit me. Is anybody else tired? And it's like, oh, there's aurora borealis colors going everywhere. Now I know why. that is kind of a way for us just know there are just going to be certain things that, yeah, as we're going through this, our body's going to feel it. But at the same time, you have the ability to begin to shift the things that are actually leaking your energy within this lifetime so that we're not just spilling it out all over the place and then questioning why we are feeling a bit off within our field. So, within just so much love, you guys. I love you guys so much.